Welcome aboard Alex's Animal Ark. My name is Alex, and I will be your guide to all the amazing animals that live on our planet. Today we will be learning about the grizzly bear, which was requested by my friend, Tyler Hospodarsky. Now, most of you listening have probably heard of, or at least seen, a grizzly bear, so you know what I'm talking about. To start with, grizzly bears are a large type of brown bear. There are two subspecies in North America: Kodiak grizzlies, which are found only on the Kodiak archipelago, and just plain old grizzly bears, which are found everywhere else. They can reach an average length of 6.5 feet, with a shoulder height of 3.35 feet. They usually weigh upwards of 700 pounds. Males are generally larger than the females, and can reach weights of up to 1,700 pounds, depending on where they live. Females, on the other hand, can reach weights of up to 800 pounds, but this again depends on where they live. The males can live about 22 years, and the females usually live longer than males at about 26 years. They're covered in very thick fur that can range in color from blonde to nearly black, though most of them are usually brown with darker colored legs, and white or blonde tipped fur on their sides and back. In the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, they often have a light brown girth band. Grizzlies have a dished-in face, or a concave-like face, with short rounded ears. On their backs they have a large muscular hump. This hump is a mass of muscles attached to the backbone, which gives them extra strength for digging and running. Speaking of running, they can run up to 35 miles per hour for short distances. They have incredibly long claws, which can reach lengths of 2 to 4 inches, which help them with digging. Their rumps are lower than their shoulders. So where can you find grizzly bears? Well, they're typically found in woodlands, forests, alpine meadows, prairies, and also riparian areas near rivers and streams. Current range in North America includes Alaska, most of western Canada, and parts of the northwestern United States, with the southernmost points of the range being Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. In Canada, they can be found in British Columbia, Alberta, the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, Nunavut, and northern Manitoba. In the United States, they can be found in Alaska, as stated before, as well as Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. They can also be found in Europe and Asia, where they are just called brown bears. Their previous North American range was from Alaska all the way down to Mexico and as far east as the western shores of the Hudson Bay. There are about 55,000 bears in North America, of which 30,000 are found in Alaska alone. So what are some grizzly bear behaviors? Grizzly bears are typically diurnal and forage during the day. They are omnivores, so they can eat both plants and animals. Their diets also vary depending on the season and where they live. The most common plants or parts of plants eaten are fleshy roots, fruits, berries, grasses, forbs, and white bark pine nuts and tubers. They also eat lots of animals. These include salmon, trout, bass, clams, moose, elk, caribou, white-tailed deer, mule deer, bighorn sheep, bison, sometimes muskox, various rodents such as marmots, ground squirrels, lemmings, voles, and also carrion, which on the coast could include dead whales, seals, and sea lions. Grizzlies are mostly solitary, but will come together to breed, or if there is a large supply of food, like during the salmon run. The males typically have home ranges between 800 to 2,000 square miles, and females have home ranges between 300 and 550 square miles. Like many bear species, during the winter months, grizzly bears will hibernate for 5 to 7 months. During the summer and fall, they will eat as much food as they can to build up their fat reserves, since they don't eat during their hibernation period, and can often gain up to 400 pounds during this period known as hyperphagia. They will also dig a den to sleep in during the winter. These dens are usually only big enough for the bear to squeeze in to preserve warmth, and the floor is usually lined with bedding of some kind, which also helps preserve the warmth. After the winter comes, The grizzlies will enter their dens and hibernate. During this period, they will reduce their heart rate, lower their temperature and metabolic rate, and live off their fat stores. They will also not urinate or defecate during this period as well. They will then leave their dens when the temperature warms up. Hibernation is also when female grizzlies, or sows, give birth to their cubs. Mating generally occurs during the spring and summer, and the females can mate with multiple males during this period. Once the female becomes pregnant, the embryo goes through a process called delayed implantation, where it stops developing for several months until the female hibernates. This happens because if the female can't build up enough fat during hyperphagia, then a miscarriage occurs, but this gives the female a head start to put on enough weight for the next year to give birth to cubs successfully. If the female is successful in putting on enough weight, then during hibernation, the development continues and gestation begins, which can last between 180 and 250 days. The cubs are then born in January or February, and there can be between 1 to 4 cubs, but 2 is a common number. The females will care for their cubs in their den until spring, when they leave the den. The cubs continue to nurse and drink milk until summer, when they start eating solid food, but still drink the milk. They will stay with their mother for 2 more years, where she will continue to protect them. Eventually they will leave and go off on their own. And now it's time for some grizzly bear fun facts. They get their name because their fur is usually tipped with white, which gives them a grizzled look. Coastal grizzlies are usually bigger than their inland cousins due to the variation in their diets. California used to have a subspecies of grizzly bear, and they even have it on flag, but there hasn't been a California grizzly bear in the state since the last one was killed in the 1920s. The urea they produce during the fat metabolism process is usually fatal, but the grizzlies are able to break it down and use the resulting nitrogen to maintain their muscle mass and organ tissue. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more, feel free to subscribe to Alex's Animal Ark on YouTube, or subscribe on Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Castro, Castbox, Podfriend, and iHeartRadio. If there is an animal you would like to hear me cover, please email your name and the animal you want to hear about to awesomeanimals21@gmail.com, and I will add it to the list. Thank you for coming on this animal adventure. I will see you all again for the next voyage.